Russia, at least on the field of battle, don't appear to have an awful lot to offer at the moment. They ground to a halt in the east, and we know all the difficulties they're having at a strategic level, and they just don't appear to have any options at their disposal at the moment.
And time then to invite you into our daily briefing room. We're one of our leading tactical and strategic minds with years of experience high in military command, shares insights on the war in Ukraine. Let's welcome Major General Rupert Jones, former Standing Joint Forces Commander. Rupert, good afternoon to you.
Hey, John, very nice to see you again.
Always good to have you here, Rupert. First of all, can I just get your take on the latest state of the war in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, all the talk is quite understandably about the Ukrainian offensive in the south, and and that will take time to play out, and we should all be patient about that. The signs are encouraging, aren't they? The Ukrainians have done good work to prepare the ground for that offensive, and they appear to be making steady headway. But they'll be cautious with it. So I think that's interesting. There's a sense that they're looking to mount advances in the north as well. And I think what this all amounts to is the Ukrainians trying to make the best use of the final months, if you like, before the real winter sets in. I suppose the only other thing I'd observe is that it therefore feels that it's Ukraine who are making all the plays. Russia, at least on the field of battle, don't appear to have an awful lot to offer at the moment. They ground to a halt in the east, and we know all the difficulties they're having at a strategic level, and they just don't appear to have any options at their disposal at the moment.
Talking earlier in the week to a Ukrainian politician who was making the point that they are really doing the very best they can on this very important frontier around Kherson, but worried about the supply of munitions. It is the job of a Ukrainian politician to make the point and try and keep the pressure on Western allies to keep the supply of weapons and ammunition going. Are you concerned at all? Is there reason to be worried about the forces of Ukraine on that important front line and what could be a turning point in the war, running out of vital munitions?
Well, I think he points to two really important things. I mean, firstly, it is right and proper that he makes that case from a Ukrainian perspective to keep the pressure on NATO and Ukraine's other allies. I think that is right and proper to do. But there is a behind that, he's also right. No Western military holds as many stocks of munitions as we would like because they're very, very costly to hold. And we're talking about urban warfare. And my experience of urban warfare is it is very, very costly in a whole range of things, not least in munitions. So, the global coalition fighting in Mosul and Raqqa, we had to ration our use of munitions, particularly the smart munitions, because urban warfare eats them up so very much. So he's absolutely right to make the case, and it is absolutely a concern.
I was very interested, Rupert, to read earlier in the week about the capacity of Ukrainian forces to exercise their imagination and powers of improvisation, the way that they are putting equipment, sometimes low-cost equipment, to incredibly good use. By mounting missiles on the backs of trucks, for example, by using drones, adapting low-cost drones to drop munitions onto the enemy, making a little go a very long way. I mean, they are learning a lot there and applying what they learn, and maybe giving lessons to the rest of us in the process.
Oh, there's no doubt. Firstly, warfare, I think it was Trotsky who said war is the locomotive of change. So, you get real innovation in time of war, in time of need. And the best military innovations come not from the kind of hierarchy, but from the fighters on the ground. And it comes from necessity. And as you suggest, particularly when you're slightly up against it, you're up against, on the face of it, a better equipped military, that really encourages innovative technology and innovative techniques. And my God, the Ukrainians have been masters of that over the last 6 months. And as to your point about can we learn from it? Absolutely, we can. There's no doubt that we can and we must learn from what we're seeing from the Ukrainians.
But clearly doesn't lessen the need for supplies of munitions from Britain, America, and allies in Europe and the West. I'm interested now in your soldiers' point of view of this. A British medic serving with Ukrainian forces has been killed, and we've seen a number of examples recently of British citizens who go to Ukraine to fight alongside Ukrainian soldiers. Some of them with military experience, and they are being taken. They're at risk of course, of being killed on the battlefield, but also being captured, tried as mercenaries, and maybe facing execution after perhaps a show trial. What does that make you think, Rupert? Because you'll see this in many ways through a soldier's eye. You'll recognise the impulse to go there, and as someone I've spoken to say, just do something. But it's not as simple as that.
No, it's not. And I mean, I won't comment on the kind of legalities or otherwise for that. There's others who are better qualified because it's complicated from a legal perspective. But I absolutely recognise why people feel the need to answer the call. This is metaphorically on our doorstep, and NATO doesn't feel able to directly get involved in the conflict for reasons we would all recognise. But there are people who care passionately, and they're so frustrated and feel that the best thing they can do is contribute in some small way, and that might be providing humanitarian relief down in the region, or it might be by bearing arms. I know people are out there who are fighting, and I absolutely take my hat off to them. They're not naive; they know what they're doing, and they believe passionately in the cause.
All right, now just finally, Rupert, and again, always good to talk to you. Your thoughts on the reported death of the chairman of Lukoil in Russia, falling out of a window. The regime of Vladimir Putin has a bit of form when it comes to important people meeting a sticky end if they happen to be opposed to the president.
They really do, and particularly in the oil and gas industry. I mean, I think he's something like the fifth or sixth high-ranking individual who has met a suspicious alleged suicide demise since the start of the campaign. I mean, and they're so ham-fisted. This case, I think, the claim is that he was on a windowsill high up in the hospital, and he falls, and coincidentally the CCTV is off for maintenance at the time. We saw this with the attack in Salisbury. The craft of the manner in which they conduct these killings is very, very poor. Now, one of the things Putin doesn't like is being laughed at. And what the UK did very effectively after the Salisbury attack was made Putin and the Russians look stupid. And again, the Ukrainians are doing that very effectively when these sort of awful acts happen. But behind it is something very, very serious. And it points to why the international community must continue to double down on President Putin. He kills with impunity. And we should recognise that when we look at the huge courage of those Russians who do stand up to him.
Rupert, really good to have you on the show as always. That's Major General Rupert Jones taking us there into today's briefing room.